write that down.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Claire. How are you? Let me make sure that,
Thank you.
okay.
Wow, my name's even on here. You're good.
Ferguson and Dart.
You ready to roll?
I am, I had to get something quick. They're in my
I
stuff.
bet. Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting of the East Bay Township Planning Commission to order. It's November 9th. Judy, will you take a roll call for the members of the Planning Commission?
That, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready? Syke is absent and excused. Gonzalez.
Here.
Edley. Here. Ferguson.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
And Bartlett.
Here.
And Nemitz. Here.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a review for any conflict of interest. Is there any member of the board who's present who may have a conflict of interest for the agenda items this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to approval of the agenda for this evening, November 9th.
I would so move to approve the agenda for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021.
Support.
Okay, moved by Nemitz, support by Bartlett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now on to the minutes. The minutes we have before us are from the meeting of October 19th, a joint meeting. Tracy, is there anything we need to discuss in relation to those?
Last night, the Township Board approved these minutes with a couple of amendments, and they were on your desk. It's on the second page in the bullet points. You'll notice the third bullet point, instead of saying "should be adopted," was amended to be "was discussed." And then the last bullet point, it was changed to short-term rental licensure and its applicability to cabin courts was discussed.
Okay. Pending those adjustments that are noted in our meeting minutes, would you entertain
I have a couple questions.
or any other?
I thought, are these the attorney's suggestions, or are these things that came about during the meeting?
The bullet points?
Yes.
Those were some of the points that were brought to the meeting to be discussed by Claire, the planner.
Okay, so they weren't reflective of what we chatted about a little bit.
They are reflective.
Okay.
One of them, the should owners show proof of liability insurance, that was, that was a discussion that came out. Same with the moratorium was something that was brought up by Commissioner Gonzalez, as well as consider limiting the number of short-term rentals an individual can have. So I think that these bullets were intended
Combination,
to
yeah.
summarize what was discussed by the commissioners and some of
Okay.
the ideas.
So there is, where does it say that under capping, it says, does it say the ones, where does it say something about more than one? I'm sorry, I must be missing it, where we talked about more than one or two or three licenses.
I think bullet number 4 says consider limiting the number of short-term rentals
an
an
individual
individual or company.
And I thought we talked also about distances. That
Yeah, I
didn't
think
give us-
that
Which one
was-
is that?
That is under
Bullet
here
three.
too. It's on bullet 3.
Okay.
Separation distances.
Okay, separation distances. All right, thanks. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of.
I'd make a
October.
motion to approve the minutes of the joint meeting, October 19th, 2021, with the amendments as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. So, motion made by Bartlett, seconded by Nemitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 5, public comment. For those of you in the general public who wish to have any speaking topics not related to agenda items, please feel free to approach the podium, release your name and where you're from.
Hi, Beth Friend, Township Supervisor. I'm here with Ted Henschel, your former colleague. And last Thursday evening, first of all, Mr. Chair, I hope you'll give me just a little bit of latitude on the time, although I will try to keep it brief.
I think you get a pass.
He enjoys being back here, but he's also enjoying his own time, so. Last Thursday was the Grand Traverse County Chapter meeting banquet of Michigan Townships Association. And at that banquet, we give out awards, and there were 3 certificates of appreciation given across Grand Traverse County. And one of our recipients was not there, and so we thought that this would be a perfect time to present him with the award. So if you'll just let me reiterate some of the comments that I made that evening. And I mentioned to all the attendees, have you ever met a planning commissioner who asked for the planning commission job so they could actually end zoning? But through the course of his work and the care for his community, he became a staunch defender of the merits of zoning. This is the true story of Ted Henschel, as I know it, as I've heard him say it. He has given graciously of his time on the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. He has served over a quarter of a decade for the township and its residents. Ted is refreshingly open-minded, thoughtful when needed, critical when needed, and most of all, a community and family-oriented. It is with great appreciation that the Grand Traverse County Chapter of Michigan Townships Association offers a certificate of appreciation to Ted Henschel for his work as a planning commissioner. There you are, Ted. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's great.
Wonderful working with you too.
You as well.
And you, it's been wonderful working with you. And all of you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ted.
Ted.
Thanks for your
Yeah,
service.
Ted.
You bet.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. I'm gonna miss you the most. Have a wonderful meeting.
Hi and good evening. I'm Dane, part of New PGOs, Inc., for your 4 PGOs on High Lake Road. We have a small issue with our extra building on the property. I don't know if most of you are aware of it. It used to be a banquet hall. But as new owners coming in and as the liquor license got switched over, they no longer allow us, the MLCC no longer allow us to serve alcohol in there in any way, shape, or form. I've tried on that. So that leaves us with a building with really no use on it. And in these days and times, we're having issues staffing the restaurant, just like everybody else is having issues on there. So we do look, in the summertime, we look elsewhere to bring in some foreign workers, be it the H-2B visas and the H-1B visas. We even use J-1 visas on that. So then we run into a problem with housing for these folks when we bring them in. And obviously we bring them in, they don't have transportation or anything, so we need housing for something close by on that. So sitting here with the building that really has no use to us, we thought, hey, wouldn't that be great if we could just turn this into a 3-bedroom living quarters, if you will, for these folks. It's not a rental, it's not a commercial thing. It's basically a single-family home on there. And so in researching some of that, there is some problems, obviously, with the zoning on there. It's a dual-use zoning. We have the restaurant on one hand and a single family. We were told we could build a single-family house on the back property of PGO's, which doesn't make any sense fiscally or financially for us on there, and that would take up parking, and that would spill parking over, and I'm still left with a building that's sitting there really rotting away, doing nothing because of no use on it. So we're asking for consideration on the possibility of a dual zoning for this particular issue on there. I don't know all the particulars on it. I do know it's been done in different districts within the township here. But we're willing to work with anybody and everybody to do it properly and do it correctly and see what we need to do to see if that's even feasible to do. Obviously, PGO's has been in this community for a long time, 37 years. And they do a lot of wonderful things for this community. We've been here in this community for a long time ourselves, it feels like, my wife and I. So we just hope you can consider that and help us along and give us some pointers on what we can do to make that happen, if it's even possible. May or may not be, but that's where we are with it.
Gotcha. A couple questions for you. One, what's your last name?
Porter.
Two, what's your address? Where's your home?
On Forest Lakes Drive here, 3699 Forest Lakes Drive.
Okay. And then lastly, I'd encourage you to reach out. If you haven't spoke with Leslie or Claire, you have kind of,
Suggested we come and ask for consideration on possibly doing the dual zoning for this.
so, and I guess
Special use zoning.
I'm just a little off in terms of what the background or the underlying zoning characteristics are there, and I don't have a whole lot of background, honestly, but I'd love to, maybe we get a little bit more background, and then we can have something to respond to. This is great to bring it before this body, because honestly, housing, we just heard tonight, you know, on another project that's coming up before us, it's going to be offered actually fairly close, but it's a little ways out in terms of timing.
Right.
I understand the pertinency of that. It's going on as a region, as a massive hurdle for all of our business community and people trying to move to the region, frankly. So understood, I think it'd be worth pursuing and seeing what options are out there. Again, I don't want to shoot from the cuff or from the hip. I rely on staff for that. But, you know, maybe we tee this up with some background, just a little bit of like how we've gotten here for the next meeting, and have a little more of a official dialogue between our group as kind of a working session. Because to me, it is a problem everywhere where we want to be, I think as a body, we've been very open to creativity, but also kind of trying to not get outside of our comfort zone, if you will, so.
Which is understandable.
Yep.
Which is why we're bringing it up. Yeah, we want to give you time to think about it and discuss it and see what options there are, if there are.
Sure. No, I appreciate the feedback, and yeah, we'll rely on staff for kind of the next conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the community, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, we've been here for 25 years, so.
Your new owner, new business owner.
New business owner. Yeah. Absolutely. Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Let's move into reports. Board of Trustees.
Sorry, I did not prepare one. I just got appointed last night, so
It's okay.
give me a break. We passed the budget last night, and it was pretty much as presented. I don't know if any of you saw the budget. It was been in our packet a couple of times. We did do wage increase of 5.9, which is the COLA increase right now, so that's across the board. And what else did we do? That was the big thing. Oh, there is Sue would probably kill me for not mentioning this, although I might steal her thunder, I don't know. Because of the new or the increase from the census, there is an additional precinct, voting precinct in East Bay Township. So now we have 5 voting precincts. And I can't even tell you which ones go where, but the new voting location is going to be the Metro Admin Building down on Parsons, the corner of Parsons and 3 Mile. So one of the precincts, and I don't know which one, is there. They will be sending out a mailing with new cards and new maps. There'll be something in the newsletter about it, so just keep watching for more information. You can also watch the website. It'll be on there, I'm sure, so.
Perfect,
Is
perfect.
that going to reconfigure all the precincts?
I think it took some from 2 of them, I think. I'm not in the clerk's office, so I don't know all the details. But I think they took, because you can only have so many voters in each precinct, and a couple of ours were like within 10 people of the max, so they had to add a precinct, take some from a couple of precincts to make a precinct. So not all of the precincts were affected, but I think 2 of them, I think. But if you were affected, you will get a new voter registration card and information on where to go to vote and things like that.
Okay. ZBA, I forget who's our rep.
I am.
Here we go.
We had our meeting on October 12th, and we had 2 issues. One was an approval of a variance for building a garage in the Lakes area. About a 15-foot variance that they requested, and that was granted. And then the second item was action with respect to an appeal determining accessory businesses, and that has been tabled. So that will probably come up at the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, last but not least, Claire.
Okay. Just one additional thing for the board meeting last night. The board approved the 2 zoning amendments. So one is to the zoning lots and parcels, and the other one is to the cabin courts. So that both of those amendments that the Planning Commission recommended have been approved. Just wanted to let you know that staff is working on a couple different grant submissions. We're working with Carl, but we're applying with TART for an EDA grant on the 3 Mile Trail for extension. This would be for final engineering, so it'd be a pretty big grant. So we're pretty excited about that. And then we're also applying to MDARD for the US 31 business corridor outreach, and this would be basically the same grant that we put into USDA that we were not successful in obtaining, but it would be for banners and branding and marketing of the beach district and businesses, but then also doing some conceptual design and working closely with business owners along there and engaging on some planning stuff. I wanted to mention after the short-term rental discussion that we had for the joint meeting, Beth and I both had a meeting, followed up with the attorney. There's a lot of unknowns right now with the legislature. So their recommendation moving forward, they drafted a moratorium for the township to consider for new short-term rental licenses. And so that's, we just received a draft moratorium from the attorney, and that's going to be forwarded on to the board. And so the Board of Trustees would consider that at their December meeting. I did want to also just briefly address PGOs. I'd been talking with Christina today, and so I said, if you have time, it would be great if you could come to the meeting and make public comment. And I will say that the parcel right now, it's too small to be split. It's got the restaurant there, and then they've also got this other building. And our ordinance doesn't allow a combination of uses, and they're zoned local business. So we have certain districts that we allow combination of uses. Our regional business district, East Bay Corners, our professional office. But then other commercial districts, we don't allow combination of uses. So I have seen this as kind of a barrier for other developments. When GOREC was looking at what are they or what would be appropriate to come in for site plan review for, it did seem like there was a couple different uses that would be appropriate for them, but they couldn't, we've had some applicants that can't necessarily get that combination of uses if they're not in the correct zoning district. So, from my perspective, I think that would be an ordinance amendment that would be appropriate, kind of township-wide. And then for PGO specifically, that would allow them to come in. They would actually need to get a special land use permit for a resident in the local business district, but it would open up that opportunity. So I'd be happy to present some language at the next meeting for that, or just a memo or something. And then, the last comment that I had was just welcoming Tracy to the Planning Commission for the next 4 months or so.
Thank you.
Short term, I like it. Good exit strategy, too.
There you
It's
go.
already built in.
Yep.
All right. Any questions for Claire? Okay. So moving on, we do have some correspondence in everybody's desk that you've seen, hopefully a few communications from Wade Trim on the couple of agenda items we have. A letter of support from management company here in regard to the Avid Hotel amendment that we have, submitted by Andy Ebro, and actually a email correspondence from John Syke in his position, which I figured I'd get into once we get into each one of the agenda items and address those appropriately. And then just for the general public's information, we did receive several items of correspondence in regard to the Brigantine development that we're going to consider here shortly. I just want to acknowledge that we received those additional pieces from Caroline Armstrong and Charles Gabriel, Brian and Stacy Kinney, Paul and Karen Stevens, Dennis Wood, Dolores Haas, June Neal, Gary and Judy Boyer, Deb and Alan Long, and Lauren Clevering. So just FYI, quite a bit of input, and we did receive some additional input this evening, which was great to see as well. So I think that's all the correspondence we have for this evening. Moving on to agenda item number 8, unfinished business. We do not have any, thank goodness. And under new business, that brings us to the Avid Hotel minor amendment request, a reduction in parking requirements. And maybe I'll turn it over to Claire right out of the blocks to give us a little update.
Okay. So as you'll recall, Avid Hotel, where the location of former Wendy's, was approved in June of 2021 by the Planning Commission. So the applicant has been moving forward. They came to us because they've really exhausted all options for securing the shared parking agreements. They were looking for shared parking spaces both with Bob Evans and Days Inn, the two adjacent properties. And so they're seeking a reduction in total parking. The ordinance requires 95 spaces, and they are able to provide 86 spaces on their site. So this is a reduction of in total parking of 9 spaces, or 9% of total required spaces. So I did want to highlight that section 412 of the ordinance, which is our regional business district standards, it requires that new developments provide a service drive, so access connection both on the east and west side of the property. And it specifically says that a reduction in parking requirements may be approved for establishing these accesses. So part of Avid Hotel's site plan approval, they are securing access both to the east and to the west. So I would think that it would be reasonable to grant a reduction in parking of 4 to 5 spaces for those two access spaces that those two access that they're securing. The applicant is seeking to accommodate the remaining parking through an employee shuttle to and from another property that they own, which is the Baymont Inn. You'll see that that's in your correspondence that's included on the table. So Mr. Abro is here to answer any questions, but, from staff's perspective, this does seem to be a barrier to kind of moving forward, and they are documenting accommodating those 9 spaces. So I'd be happy to turn it over to the Planning Commission, and he's here to answer any questions or provide any context for you.
From the development team, Mr. Abro, would you like to approach the podium? Give us a little background. How did we get here?
So like Clara said, that we tried to accommodate the parking space next to the Bob Evans, but we just couldn't get any feedback from them if they're interested in doing it or not. So we exhausted all our options, so we decided to come back and see if we can get a variance on the parking space. And we have a hotel not too far, so we would shuttle our working people to the hotel when the guests actually do check out, which is the time of 12 and 1 o'clock. And that gives us, the 4 or 6 hours of cleaning and be able to have one employee at the time that people are checking in and stuff like that. So we're just asking if we can get that parking reduction.
Gotcha. So while the applicant's here, does the commission have any questions of him? Go ahead, Paul.
Your hotel is, got 92 guest rooms,
Correct.
and you want 86 spaces.
That's correct.
So who are the unlucky guests that don't get a spot?
Well, all guests should have a parking spots. I don't think we're going to be at 100% occupancy all times. But if that case, if that happens, I'm not sure how I would answer that to see where would I fit the rest of the guests if it were for short parking. A lot of people write together. I'm assuming, 2, 3 people would write together, if they're coming up as a family to the.
Well, it just seems from a business standpoint or a business model, you're down, by a number of spots that if you had the hotel full, you don't have spots for all your guests.
Or when we first started this project, our understanding we would be able to get a 8 parking space next to Bob Evans. That's how we went with this project, is we
Right.
build it as a 92 and be able to get access from Bob Evans to have 8 parking space. So we exhausted that option with them. We went all various different ways, talking with them. They just weren't interested. We're willing to put it on a deed, and we talked to Claire today about having that open easement down the road if Bob Evans were to shut down or close. So whoever the next business person is, we would have that and allow that access, whoever that next.
Well, I appreciate that, but it still begs the question that if you have a full hotel, what would you do with those guests that are the marginal ones that are, the 6 or so people that don't have a spot?
If you had the relationship with a neighboring hotel, would that be a potential solution, meaning offering a few guests a shuttle service back and forth?
I mean, we're open to that, yeah. Obviously, we would look at all the options that we have that we would look into that, yeah. We try to go to the Days Inn, and they weren't interested in having any parking spaces there because we're competitive.
Sure.
So they wouldn't want that.
Sure.
Maybe we look at the shuttle if we have it, one of the other neighbor businesses that we should be, we can do something with.
Or maybe future Bob Evans that will give you some, okay,
Could you-
Yes, sir, if you could come up.
That's Neil Adler, he's my brother, so he's.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean,
Our
if you-
partner too.
Yep, if you could come to the podium, it's all being recorded, so.
Maybe future, we can talk to Bob Evans, Bob Evans will be okay to us.
We're still talking to them, even though they've turned it down at this moment, it doesn't mean that, in 8 months or 6 months, they could change, but.
Sure.
And we're looking at other option neighbors even to that. But in the meantime, we're using the shuttle option to commute our people, from our Baymont property to the New Abbott Hotel.
Okay. And on an annual basis, just to give a flavor, in other markets similar, is this your first hotel, or do you have
No,
others?
we have other hotels.
Okay, and generally, what's your occupancy annually in other similar markets?
We're looking at about 60% occupancy.
Okay, got it. Just kind of trying to paint the picture, because I get it, we work within the hotel sectors quite regularly, and yes, we do experience some serious peak times, no doubt, in northern Michigan, but not necessarily the norm year-round. I hope that you guys are full the entire time,
We
but.
would love that, and that should, that would be a good problem to have.
Absolutely. But,
And it's mainly July and August is the busy time of the year, and I get it that we're 6 car park short, but, I don't know what else we can do to accommodate that. If, maybe go back to Bob Evan again, or asking one of the neighbors to see if we can shuttle some of these guests that are close by business, to see if we could do that.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, any other questions of the commission?
What would you expect would happen if you had 100% occupancy and certain guests, showed up? And do you think they would go to neighboring businesses and park, or would you?
Bob Evans, or maybe next door if they can find a way to park there. Bob Evan has a lot of parking spots open, there, especially during that night. There isn't much activity going on there. They're mainly morning and breakfast crowd there, so.
Sorry, so the 86 spots, that's not even taking in any staff, and staff you're going to shuttle
Yeah, that's only
from the
once.
Baymont.
During the peak business, there's only one person there that we're going to shuttle back and forth. But during the peak, when they're working, we're going to be shuttling them back and forth, yes. So we wouldn't account for any of these parking spots.
Okay. 6. And question, if I can, for Claire. If they put in the access, like, on both sides, that's taking up 4 to 5 spots, you figured? And if they pave it to the property lines, because we're running into problems when they don't, so that it is ready for access when those businesses flip or change hands on either side, can they, until that happens, can they use those stripe those as parking spots?
There's,
And then when we get those, when they can get those agreements?
there's already a connection at Days Inn, so
Okay.
that wouldn't work, but yes, at Bob Evans, right?
That's correct.
There's no connection that currently exists, so that would certainly be opportunity to add some additional spaces.
So that would only add 2 to 3,
We
correct?
can create more parking space, but I think we were trying to accommodate you guys, having a lot of the green, the trees back there. I believe there was some green that we were, forced, not forced, but having to keep them there in the back of there. I think we can pick up couple of the maybe parking spot there if we get rid of some
Okay,
of the trees.
that,
Yeah,
I'm
we
at a
wouldn't be able-
disadvantage, I
yeah,
wasn't
so
here for that.
They're right at I think you guys are right at the green space requirement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we couldn't park on
Right.
any of the existing green space, but the vehicular access space could
So
accommodate
that would be
probably.
2 or 3 spots, maybe? So now we're up to 89, so we're short 3.
That's openings between the businesses. Is that for emergency vehicles primarily? It's
No,
just
that
for
would be
convenience?
For convenience access.
So they could then have that striped? For pocket.
Right, well, we're not requiring, there's not going to be a connection at this time put in place because the connection would be done when Bob Evans redevelops, because we can't force Bob Evans to put in a connection, so.
Okay.
They're putting in a connection on their side, but it won't be a connection to Bob Evans. So in the interim period before the Bob Evans property redevelops or comes in for some sort of site plan review, they could theoretically park there because there's going to be no vehicular connection.
So those spots are not in the 86?
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so you'd be picking up how many then? You said 3?
3.
89.
So then we're at 89.
Do I hear?
I know.
Well, I would say that's a reasonable thing if they're, if they put curb stops so that people don't run over. So there has to be some kind of barrier, just temporary, those curb stops, because Bob Evans will definitely be watching for those overflow spaces. I don't care what time of night it is.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, to me,
Sure, Bob Evans is gonna get benefit out of it too, I mean, we
Well,
can.
I understand that. I just don't, I just want to make sure that.
You don't want to see your guests'
Right.
cars towed.
Right.
sure. But I think, oh, go ahead, Renee.
I was just going to ask, since you currently own the Baymont, you said?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what is your experience during peak time of year where like 100% of your parking spaces are filled?
Even when we filled, I think, Laura, she's our general manager there. Can you speak on that to see if, what issues do you have with parking when you're full there?
We have 119 rooms, and we're at 100% occupancy. Leave our parking spots are like 133, I think is what we have at the Bema. So it's large, and we have in years past, before the Abros took over the Bema and it was owned by Good Hospitality, we always shuttled the seasonal employees from the Bema to the Hampton Inn because they were at that time partners with Hampton Inn through Good Hospitality. So it's always been a shuttle.
Okay.
We also offered airport shuttling for our guests that don't have a car. So that, there's
That
so
was my
much-
other question, is how many of the guests, I mean, I know when I travel, I don't always rent a car, I Uber. So, you know, I guess that's why I asked how
On
much.
average, even at the Baymont, we probably get, I'm gonna say 2 or 3 a night that are Ubering from the airport or getting taxis just to the Baymont. So I know with Avid, that's gonna happen probably on a more consistent basis, because we're out, we're not.
You're even closer.
Right.
On the strip.
So it might be reasonable that those 3 spaces that we're lacking wouldn't be needed? Does that sound, I mean, I shouldn't say not needed, but, I don't know.
Not needed most of the time.
Right, most of the time.
Well, and so I guess our role realistically here is to consider the massive impact or impact at all to the community, right? To me, this is it's a balance between, you know, their right as a business to operate in a certain manner, but also ours to protect kind of how this reduction in parking would impact the community in general. So, I mean, for an issue like this, I get the consideration. Personally, I think they'll be the ones responsible to answer to their guests, not the township necessarily, at the end of the day. And I think in this corridor, and being that it is that tight, that is one of the things that we're trying to limit is the amount of pervious pavement, frankly, being so close to the watershed as well. So that's kind of one of the things that's weighing in the back of my mind. We start paving places for, you know, a temporary problem. But the pleasure is up to the board. I think you know where I'm at, but I think without any other conversation, if are there any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'd entertain a motion or any other discussion on the item. And again, just for clarity purposes, this is a minor amendment, so this would be effectively an approval for staff to move forward administratively. So just understand that. It doesn't have to go any further beyond the board, just approval at this body.
I would so move that we approve section 412-6 and have asked that the Bob Evans cut through be, can we put conditions on it? Okay, that there be a condition that be built, but that there be curb stops and be striped to accommodate those extra 3 parking places. And create a barrier though, because we don't want to have a problem with Bob Evans.
Okay, is there support for that motion?
Support.
Okay. There's a motion by Nimitz, support by Edley. May we do a roll call?
Oh, yeah.
Judy, please.
Oh, boy. Sorry, Leslie. Okay, let me get my list here. We have roll call, we have Edley,
Yes.
Ferguson,
Yes.
Nemitz, yes. Leonard,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
No.
and Bartlett.
Yes,
Sorry, Tracy,
That's all right.
It's good to have you back, but
no problem.
Okay, motion passes 5-1. Appreciate everybody's feedback, and thank you to the applicant for coming out this evening.
Thanks so much.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Moving on to our next item of business, it is site plan review 10-21 Brigantine Apartments. This is a public hearing and a discussion for this upcoming item. I think we'll kick it off with an introduction of staff as to set the tone for the site and how we've got here, and then we'll open up the public hearing for the rest of the community to comment. So go ahead, Claire, thank you.
So this application, as you'll see in the staff report, it's a use permitted by right. It meets density requirements, height requirements. It's a zoned moderate density residential, so you can have up to 5 dwelling units per acre. This is the same density as what was originally proposed as part of the Headwaters development. And as you know, the Headwaters development was originally planned to cover this entire site that the Brigantine extends onto. So Headwaters is just those 3 buildings, so this new proposal is separate from that. So, generally, you'll see in the staff report, I'd be happy after the public hearing maybe to go into some of the more technical, specific details related to some of the conditions, but you'll see in the staff report, in general, it meets all of the conditions. There was some concerns related to connections that I can go into more detail. You'll see that the site does have some documented contamination in the soils. There's a survey that was included, and I believe per Eagle requirements, there was a restrictive covenant that's been recorded with Grand Traverse County Register of Deeds, and so the limit of activities and development in the contaminated area is construction of roads, utilities, storage buildings, and asphalt parking area. So you'll see on the site plan that contaminated area, that there's no apartment buildings or anything of that nature proposed to be located there. And then we also had some review from outside agencies that I can speak to in more detail after the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you for that. And the applicants represented this evening, please come to the podium and have a little dialogue on the background of the project and where we're headed.
Good evening, everyone. Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, 830 Cottage View Drive, Suite 201, Traverse City, Michigan. Thanks so much for the time tonight. This is a project, as I was involved in the 90s with the McManus family, so we've seen a lot of iterations through time, and a lot of people taking this project under their wing and trying to ride with it, only to have things like 9/11 and the recession and all the different things that affect development take place. The Casio family from San Diego and having attachments to northern Michigan, being in the multifamily business for about 30 years, has picked up the property. They have closed on it, and they want to proceed with Brigantine Apartments. Brigantine was one of the first style of ships to flow into the Great Lakes. So there's that sailor thing again. So, yeah.
You looked that up today.
Yeah, so that's, and they actually have a sculpture one they want to put on the site and stuff like that. So that's where that comes from. But predominantly, as your planner said, we're following the general patterns of development the land gives us. There are 2 ridges on the east and west of the almost 39 acres, pretty much parallel 4 Mile Road and Vanderlip Road. And then there's a valley that runs down the middle of the site, all to the north and south. So the development wants to be on the ridge lines, and our recreational area, as the previous diagrams, is more in the stormwater, amenities, and passive recreation areas. As Claire said, there is a contaminated area down along Vanderlip Road in this little corner that does have a deed restriction on it, and similarly to the last Headwaters plan, we're locating storage buildings and some overflow areas on that site. Unlike, and this is yet to be seen through the reviews and things like that, and we witnessed some of it tonight at rush hour, going out to the site, and I had to turn left into it. Actually, there was someone, for some reason, turning right or turning left into the property across the street, so I got a break in the traffic. So we witnessed some of that going on. So some of the comments are well taken from the road commission. But beyond the connection to Vanderlip, the formal connection to Vanderlip, our access points are the same. Our routing of the sewer and water are generally the same because it flows with the land. The road circulation is generally the same, the pathways. I will say we are adding, with this market, a lot more amenities. Apartment living is now a lifestyle in Traverse City. Up until this time, or this last couple of years, our only real community-oriented multifamily development was really Live Arbors, where they had the recreation directors and the activities and the social equations taking place. So you're seeing some of that with your couple last developments being proposed now in East Bay. People are living in apartments for long periods of time. It's not just about transition the way it used to be in Traverse City. So we do have a clubhouse, a pool. We're going to create some flat terraces for passive recreation, cast it down again to another terrace where we have some dog parks because dogs are such a big part of our community. We have formal interior walkways that are hard surface. And as Claire said, we wanted to look at some more of the other associated connections. The buildings themselves, pretty common in scale and type with the market. These are 3-story walk-up units, wood frame construction. They'll have some cast stone and horizontal siding, asphalt shingles. And there's 8 of these buildings on the site, and the community center is found in your packet is similarly designed. So I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions. I'm anxious to hear what they have to say. We had some great comments and discussion out in the field, and we'll see if we can resolve some of those questions and concerns. And I'm here to answer any of your questions. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think at this time, let's open up the public hearing. So any members of the public that wish to comment or speak, please again, state your name and your address for the record, and feel free to direct those questions towards myself. And then, once we gather all the feedback, we'll bring the development representative back up here and kind of go through those questions one at a time. So whoever would like to start, or if anyone wants to, the podium is yours. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Brian Kinney. I'm presently board secretary for the Crystal Ridge Condominiums development. We have with us also tonight our president and our vice president here in attendance. I'm imagining they'll also be speaking here in a little bit. But first, I would like to say that every resident in our community has cherished the fact that it is a very private community with dead-end streets, private grounds, and we would like to keep it that way. That's part of the Northern Michigan living that we have sought out, and then in the time that we've all lived in this community, come to expect and cherish. So we would very much like to keep it as it is today. A couple of comments on the proposal here from Mansfield. First off, they have chosen to crowd our north property line with a building that's barely 16 feet off of the north line here. This is going to place every condominium which has a deck and a patio facing to the northwest for their view, looking at nothing but a 3-story building rather than the natural environment that they have today. So I have no doubt that that would be detrimental to our property values in regards to these condominiums. Now, these happen to be some of the most valued condominiums in the complex because of the walkouts. If these drop in value, naturally everything else in the development drops in value. My suggestion would be that there is plenty of land here to be able to adjust the position of these buildings and move them north, and also reduce the amount of space between these garages and move them back to the west, garages and building, to allow a larger natural barrier around this corner. Another point, they have chosen to locate a proposed trash compactor here. The distance from the condominium residents that are here along Caspian Lane is not very far. You're probably talking to the trash compactor, less than 100 yards. Everyone from this complex is going to be bringing their trash up to this trash compactor and then turning around in this loop and driving back through. So our residents who live in these condominiums are going to suffer the detrimental effects of increased noise pollution from all of the vehicle traffic coming around here. So I believe a fair option for that would be to relocate the trash compactor at the north end of the complex, where it does not affect any of the surrounding community here. Then we have the issue of the three-story buildings. When the Headwaters development went in, those were two-story buildings, a little bit larger than the surrounding single-family homes of condos in our development and also to the east of 4 Mile. Our request would be not to allow anything that's over 2 stories onto this development parcel. 3 stories doesn't fit with the rest of the community. It turns it into another Ridge 45. And frankly, it just, it doesn't fit. You're going to leave everyone there looking at gigantic apartment buildings, taking away their view off to the northwest. The other comment I'd like to make, there's been a noted proposal here for a connection on the walking path between the apartments in our community. I haven't talked to a single resident who's in favor of that. Quite frankly, put it very bluntly, we don't want any sort of connection with this apartment complex. That's private property that we all pay for the upkeep on, and we enjoy that privacy. And it's not our intent to ever open it up to the general public. So our request would be to remove that from the plan. I know I've heard about that in the ordinance, but in a case like this, where you're talking a connection to private property that has no public thoroughfare anywhere through it, it's all private roads, private walking path, we just don't see the need. Don't see any benefit to Crystal Ridge, only potential benefit to the Brigantine apartment complex. So, last point here I would like to ask regarding colors and exterior finishes for the buildings. If the gentleman from Mansfield could answer that for us, that would be much appreciated. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Got to come up to the podium. Thank you.
I'm Judy Boyer, 2128 Crystal Ridge Drive. And I was looking at the 101 pages of what, accepted and not satisfied. I don't know what that document is. SPR number 1021, page 2 of 9. And it says, Vehicular pedestrian connections were prioritized, and the approved site plan shows a non-motorized connection. How can that be approved if it's private property for Crystal Ridge? So that would be my question.
Okay.
Page 2 of 9, second paragraph. Because I also would prefer to keep it private. We recently moved here, retired, so we could have a quiet community. When the roundabout came in, that was a little difficult during the construction. There were people that were yelling at us, and I guess some of our residents were yelling at them. But it was just something, we had hoped for a quiet community. We have a lot of walkers, and I know they have a lot of acreage that the apartments can walk on. So, but the main thing is, I'm curious as to why it says an approved site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Alan Long at 2129 Crystal Ridge Drive. Debbie couldn't be here tonight. She had surgery yesterday, or she would be here. But I wanted to follow up on the connection and the possibility of people using our property. Where would the liability come in there? If some of us who can barely walk now are walking, and a young man comes on his bicycle and there's an accident, who is going to be responsible for that? I don't understand at all this connection. I'm sure there's laws or whatever, but it makes absolutely no sense for people who pay $300 or so for the upkeep and the maintenance, and especially for the vulnerability. We have people living in our addition who are on canes, walking slowly. I can't imagine any other kind of traffic allowed to use our property in that way when we are all at risk. That's the question I have. I don't know if you can answer that. Where does this connection deal come from?
We'll get to that.
Thank you.
We'll get to that. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm short.
Welcome, Short.
Very short. No heels, makes it worse. I'm Karen Stevens. I live at 2111 Crystal Ridge. My husband Paul is also here this evening. I am the president of Crystal Ridge. And Brian basically covered most of the things same concerns that I have as well. A couple of things that weren't addressed that I find concerning, and one is traffic. Traffic, now that we have the roundabout, is consistent. It's constant, it never stops now. So getting in and out of our development, out of Crystal Ridge, can be challenging. I'm still I'd like to consider myself still on the young side, 6 grandkids, but I'm still on the young side. If I find it challenging, and most of my neighbors are senior citizens, in the morning, I got to get on the gas. If I don't, I'm not going to get out. So that's concerning, number one. Number two, you've got Alta Vista coming in. You've got Elmbrook development going on. Elmbrook Golf Course just sold. So who knows what they're going to ask for in the next couple of years to develop the rest of that. You know, I don't know if they're going to do away for the whole golf course or if they're going to keep part of it, but you know there's going to be a development there. My husband could speak better on this because he's lived here since the 70s and been in this area and grew up in East Bay Township. But from what I understand, the infrastructure between probably, would you say 3 Mile? Garfield? About 3 Mile forward, nothing's really been done to expand those roads, make it easier. It goes down to 2 lane, there is no turn lane, and we're going to bring all these people in, and then we're all going to try to get out and get back in. And I just don't see how this is going to be beneficial to anybody if we don't do something about the road issue. So that's number one. The other thing is I am total agreeance of no connection to Crystal Ridge. Several reasons. One is we're mostly senior citizens retirement in our community. I would say 98% is retired senior citizens that live there. We all look out for each other. We're a small community. We know each other. We know who's supposed to be where and when. I mean, we still have visitors and things, but we all know that. We all know who we are. We can sit on our porch and see somebody walk by and know that, oh, it's their grandkids are here visiting. We won't know that if they connect to us, number one. Liability, as it was mentioned a few minutes ago, is also an issue. We do have our retention pond. We have restrictions on what you can do and can't do to that pond. You can't ice skate on it, you can't swim in it, because there's liability issues. So there is a liability issue of who's going to get hurt on our property, who's going to be responsible for that. Not to mention, we do pay monthly dues to maintain those roads, to maintain that pond, to maintain our grass, maintain our landscaping. I'm not going to have somebody in there, I have grandkids. I mean, they come over, but I don't have control over anybody else's kids on that property coming from an apartment building. And to be perfectly honest, I can't say what they would or would not do to property, especially vulnerable senior citizens that sometimes are not locking their doors every minute of the day, you know? So that's a huge concern. Safety. Huge concern with safety. We all know that Ridge 45 is a huge development. Ridge 45 has also had a huge crime rate and a lot of problems. And I happen to know this from, I would say, because I work with a lot of people that live in Ridge 45. My massage therapist lives at Ridge 45. And there is a lot of perks to living at Ridge 45, all these wonderful amenities that you get. But when I actually went to my massage therapist today, and she said, yeah, she goes, we're fighting to get lighting. She goes, I get out, it's darker than night, can't see anything getting out of my car, and I'm scared. And they don't want to put up cameras, they don't want to do all these things. If they had all these things, maybe the crime rate at Ridge 45 wouldn't have been nearly as prevalent as it has been since it's become so populated and, you know, finished growing the way it has. I find a concern. I would like to know from Mansfield Company what kind of lighting they're going to offer, what kind of security they're going to offer. Are they going to have outdoor cameras available? You know, what's that going to look like? On the other side of that, all that lights, guess who's lit up like Christmas? Crystal Ridge. And, you know, right now, the association before I was on the board was nice enough to let us put a hot tub on our patio. My husband and I like to sit out there at night and look at the stars. Now we're going to look out there and look at all the lights in the parking lot at the new apartment building. So all that safety lighting also brings another issue, and that's light pollution. So, you know, those are a few of the things in addition to what Brian said. I agree with him on everything he pointed out. I think it's too close to the property line. I think that I would like to see personally, if there a natural berm of some sort that alternates trees. We have that berm, and we have I believe they're blue spruces, is it, Brian? We have blue spruces. There's no reason they could not put some natural area that matches the height of our berm that alternates some trees to kind of block some of that for our community and other people around from us. Because even though it's on our back door, it's also going to affect the condos on the other side, even though I know they were not, you know, brought into this because they're not close enough. So I believe that's pretty much everything I have to say on that, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Kinney. I live at 2145 Crystal Ridge Drive. And the two things I have to talk about really are what Karen just talked about. Number one, the light pollution. I'm just wondering, I know that in the some of the information we have, it shows a light plan. And I'm just wondering, will those lights kind of be pointing downwards so they'll have like a top on them to reduce that light pollution? So that would be one question. And then my second question is, it touches on what Karen was just talking about. We would ask that a berm be built right here on the east side, so it would be even with ours, because right now, these are where all the trees are, and then there's like maybe a 4-foot drop between our property and this property. And so we would ask a berm be built to match the level of ours, and they have alternating trees in there, because that would really go a great way to block some of our view of the storage units. I think that would be very helpful. I know there's quite a, you know, as I said before, from where our berm is to where the ground is where they're going to build those, I know that that's, you know, quite a distance. So if they would build a berm and then maybe put a wall in front of it and then put the storage units there. I think that would help with what we're going to see out of our back doors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ed and Kathy Polk, 1827 Caspian Lane, my wife Kathy. We currently live in this right here. So we're going to be very much impacted by what's going to be going on right here. We currently have the spruces that we planted. I'm curious to see, are they going to be held to putting any kind of landscaping, tree-wise, spruce-wise, to kind of block, instead of looking at all these parking spots and all that? And another thing about the connection to the path is dogs. Those people could walk in there with their dogs. We all pick up after our animals. If they walk in with a dog, there's nothing saying that they don't care, it's not their property. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Al Ridgely. I'm at 1839 Caspian Lane, right next door to Ed. And all I want to have is to comment. I came over here from Grayling along the Nasty River, and one of the reasons I bought the place I bought is because of the view. If you build what you say you're going to build, you're going to ruin the view. If you ruin the view, you ruin my property values. I had a guy come to my house a couple years ago to repaint my balcony. And he was talking, he said, why are you worried about your balcony? He said, anybody wants to buy this place is going to come through your living room, and the view's going to attract them. You're not even going to know you have a balcony. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Judy Yeager, I live at 2099 Crystal Ridge Drive. We just moved there 3 years ago. And we moved from Potter Road and 4 Mile. We had a house over there. Lived in the woods, beautiful. And we had to move because of my husband's health. So we couldn't take care of that property. So we looked really hard, and the view here was perfect. My husband was so happy that we found it, and we really love it. We sit out there all the time. And with this, if they don't put a barrier there, we are right there. We're right there. So that's what we will be looking at now. So that would just really impact, we don't get out, we don't go that often anymore. We're kind of stuck at home. So that would just really interfere with just our way of life here. We actually stayed close because we really do like this area. So if they do build, maybe not so high, and definitely put a barrier there so when we look, so we can set out and still enjoy, and definitely not have our pathway open to people that are not taking care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers? Going once.
Dolores Hassey, 2144 Crystal Ridge Drive. I don't have anything other than what everybody's already talked about today, except for the facts that we were the first owners in Crystal Ridge. I lost my husband, and why am I crying over this? I don't even know.
It's okay.
It's just, this is our home, this is our home's been here, for 15 years. And so I just hate to see this big development going in around us. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't fit with the way I see East Bay Township and what we're used to here with single-family homes. And yes, there are some apartment buildings that have been fine neighbors to me, but I just hate to see all the expanse of what's proposed for that property. So that's all.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, I'm kind of an old man as far as this township goes. Started coming up here in the early 70s. We had a vacation home on Arbutus 4. Moved up here in 78, house out Potter Road. I've lived here my whole life, except when I was in the service. Served from 85 to 89, a couple more years in reserves. Always lived in East Bay Township. And what I've seen grow, I've seen no improvement in the infrastructure, very little. With the amount of people they want to bring in here, and, I mean, what's the plan? Water, sewer, that kind of stuff. Fixing the roads, 3 Mile hasn't been done in forever, between Hammond and South Airport, nothing. What's the plan? And safety, too. Just no lie, Ridge 45's high crime rate. We have a small community. Seniors, easy pickings. So, I mean, we got to know what's up with the infrastructure, where's it going, that kind of stuff. That's it.
And can I get your name and address?
Paul Stevens,
Address.
2111 Crystal Bridge.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Alan Long again. I just wanted to make another comment. I think what you've heard is the people at Crystal Ridge feel that this development could potentially violate their safety and their security and the beauty and the style of living that they have. This is what I think you're hearing, and I think it's very much from the heart. It's very legitimate, and I think things could be made better with the suggestions, which wouldn't cost anybody building this a lot of money, and we would hope that you would give that a lot of consideration, especially the embankment, the trees. We're going to all be getting burglar alarms because that's the way it works. We don't lock our cars now, but we'll have to get burglar alarms. We'll have to get outside lighting, which now are used to see. Brian sees what deer or raccoons are out there at night, or foxes. But this is going to really change our life, our safety, our security. People feel violated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any new customers? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 7, is that really 7:43-ish? Okay.
Feels like
Yeah, yep. It's okay. And maybe we'll have the development team come back up, and if you want to address any of the questions, I've got a list here. I'm sure you've got a list yourself. Okay. Before you do that, maybe could I turn it over to Claire to kind of talk through some of the agency letters we've got for feedback and anything else that we need to bring up in concert?
Sure. I'd be happy to address a couple of the questions. One was just on the lighting. So you'll see in the staff report, the township does have some pretty specific standards related to lighting, and we did follow up with the applicant to get specific illustrations and specifications on the lighting fixtures that they're proposing. So they're all dark sky compliant, downward shielded lighting. So they do, what they're proposing does meet all of our ordinance standards related to the lighting. There was also a question just about the pathway and where it was, when it was approved as part of the site plan approval. So I can tell you that, I went back to the, Crystal Ridge was approved in 2007 by the township. So in your packet, there's a copy of that site plan that was approved, and you'll see what the staff report is referencing is there's a pathway and there's an intent to connect to the Brigantine apartment. So there's a non-motorized pathway that goes through, and then there's a stub that goes off and dead ends right at the property line for Brigantine, and that has been built and is, you can see in the property. So that's what the staff report was referring to, was that 2007 site plan approval. In terms of some of the agency comments that we've got back, we did hear back from the road commission, and they do want to see a traffic study. And so I think that was one big one that we don't have yet in terms of information. And so I think that would be, potentially have some impact on the site plan, having that traffic study completed. It looked like when Headwaters was approved, the road commission also did require a traffic study for phase 2. But only phase 1 was completed, so we don't have any traffic study from that development on file with the township.
Got it. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Thanks, everyone, for being open and honest and cordial. It means a lot to me, so. And traffic study, just while we're on that, Stafford Hall had a traffic study. So that for 1,500 trips per day. Yeah, so there was one done about the same density. So, yeah.
What year?
2005? Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
Yeah. It is a good basis because it's same density, same driveway locations. So, all right, I'm going to try to go down my list. So, first of all, I'm going to say I'm a little bit surprised, and I shouldn't be, because there's nothing like somebody defending their backyard, and I appreciate that. But Headwaters, again, followed the same routing, same building placements. So, and this is, one of the things I wish realtors did better is when they, and people did better, is that when you buy a condominium, you need to read the purchaser's handbook, okay? Because it's all in there. In fact, Claire was good enough to put my discussion during the Crystal Ridge approval in here about future connections and stuff. And we run into this all the time. So I just want you to know, this discussion about interconnections isn't new, but interconnecting communities goes back a long way. So I can appreciate the township stance too, especially when we talk about traffic. We aren't necessarily looking for that connection either. We're trying to meet the ordinance, okay? And the ordinance says we're going to correct, but that's up to you. Back to the building placement, especially on the west-hand corner, the idea that we tried to follow generally the patterns for the sake of comfort with what they knew was going to happen in front of them. Our buildings are actually 30 feet, and I can get a scale out from our property line to the first building. This is 100 scale, so that's 5 feet beyond what the required setback is, okay? Also on that, you have to understand in the grading plan from the property line at that corner, our grade is down 10 feet from that. So there's a distinct elevation change when we talk about scale there. Thirdly, our landscape plan that was shown in the packet of information has 7 white pines and 1 red maple planted on that corner. right there between the building and that property corner. Similarly, on the east line, where it was pointed out, people would be looking west at the storage buildings, and again, there were storage buildings right up to the property line in Headwaters. We are going to double that barrier, that landscape barrier, with a staggered row of white pines and blue spruces. So that's already in the site plan, the things you commented on. So we've been conscious of this, and I just want you to know it's there. Finally, when we talk about the distance to the property line, it's one thing, but I think in a moderate density zone area, which for East Bay is getting up there for what you're going to see development-wise. That's pretty heady stuff for East Bay, and East Bay is changing, and it has expected to change for decades. In fact, at one time, there was so little growth in East Bay that their water and sewer funds were in the red, and things were not good here, because they were promised all this development. But moderate density, this is heady stuff for East Bay Township. Given that, we're in a moderate density with an apartment project next door to a single-family detached. My closest building is 150 feet away or more to the nearest unit. And in fact, the units to the south, my apartment is the 100 yards. Not a lot of communities can say that they have that kind of buffering between zoning districts. So I think we've done pretty well. Now, the orientation of our buildings is actually 50 feet to the west of what Stafford Hall was. So when we talk about the corridor of view, you probably won't have the 180-degree view that you have in front of you right now. But your northern view is going to be secured right off your decks. And I've designed it that way. The community building and the road in the middle of that core is 26 feet below the grade of your property line. It's a one-story building. So understand that you're going to be looking well over the top of that roof, over the trees on the next ridge and back to your bay view. We aren't going to block that. When we talk about the lighting, and the lighting you're going to be looking at, our light poles are no higher than 16 feet. Well, in that instance, if I'm 26 feet down in that hole, that's 10 foot, the lights are actually 10 foot lower than the grade that you'd be standing on. So actually 15 or so feet above your eye level when you're looking at the bay. So again, we've taken that into conscious design effort, and these are full cutoff, dark sky compliant lights, okay? So there won't be the glare upwards. We have on our footpaths and in all the parking lots, we have lighting that's pedestrian scale, okay? So even the footpaths, the improved footpaths have lighting along them to make it safe and convenient. But it's low level, okay? In the parking lots, again, we didn't go with 20, 25 feet like you see at the car dealerships. We stayed at 16 feet. And like I said, a lot of these corners and stuff are 8 to 10 feet below grade. So we've kept the lighting very human scale, I want to say. So I think we've made a conscious effort, and we did not, it would have been very easy to come to the township and say, hey, we want to use that road. We did not ask to use your road. It's in your buyer's handbook, and understand that, because I want to be sure that we've been conscious with this design not to impact you as much as possible. But when that project was approved, the roads were to go to the east and west and continue forward. Even though they're private roads, that's the way we have to get things done in the development world anymore, because the public agencies that maintain roads will not take over subdivision roads. It's an ugly, nasty way to have to do business, but that's how we have to build communities. But again, I'm telling you this for reality, but our proposal doesn't want to force any of those things. We've avoided it at all costs. So I think already, and it's expensive to go out and build another curb cut. on an arterial road is probably, in what they're telling us in the comments that we got back, another $100,000. And you say, well, what's another $100,000? Well, I'll tell you, the engineers want $100,000 more worth of sewer, and the road commission wants another curb cut or Vanderlip Road improved if we go that way. So it all adds up, and then we talk about we can't afford to live in this town. So I just want to say we've been conscious decision makers in this process. I heard tonight. I also wanted to comment about a couple of things we said in the field that I check on. The trees in front of you, as you look at your north property line, I don't show any grading for at least about 100, 125 feet from your north property line. So what you see now, before it dips down in the hill, is what you should see for, through the development phase. There are, with the way things are in the world, I want to talk about the management. With the way things are in the world, with the way this county has approached taking in refugees and immigrants and these kind of things, there are certain apartments that are taking vouchers, okay? And they get big dollars to take vouchers. Market rate is one thing, but vouchers are another thing, because it's government money, and that's really secure stuff. You don't have to chase that. This isn't any kind of a subsidized, they're not looking for vouchers, we're not looking for tax credits. This management group does still look at your background checks, much like a couple other projects in town. And they will not, I mean, their practice is not to create headaches for themselves. They are family-owned with the family name on the corporation. They do not want troublemakers. So they still look at background checks and look at those kind of things. I can't take your question, sir. So I just wanted to say that. I think that covers about everything I had. And I think our plan set, and I know it's hard to read and hard to interpret and take the time and see through it, especially when your defensive mechanism's up, but we've got what you need there to protect you, okay? So, and I think if there's something like a couple more trees or something like that, we would do that, and it's better to work that out almost in the field than try to decide right today where a tree should go. If you wanted to, what we've done on the Lautner farm was to say, hey, we're going to put 12 spruce trees in an escrow. And we're going to go around and say, well, let's put one here, 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 and here, you know, when we walk it with the final design. And I'm happy to do that again, okay? So we do have a long road ahead of us, and I'm hoping, I've read through Claire's conditions. We've already reached out to the road commission. That's nothing new. I think they want to see what the test is on their new toy, because I know there was a big traffic study done before they built that thing. And they probably want to see how it's working right now. So we'll do that little test on the traffic study. But the other improvements, I will tell you that I want, you know, people come here, investors, bankers, developers, and they get here at 10 o'clock and they go out and they say, well, this is, you know, what are you worried about? Well, be here at 5 o'clock and at 7:30 on Hammond Road with those kind of influxes. So I'm not sure how much I want to press the Vanderlip. Maybe we end up doing the improvements, but gating it. Because I told him, I said, this is when the roundabout was under construction. And I think as a citizen here, I'm kind of getting careful about roundabouts and what they do for traffic, because there is no gaps anymore, you know. I'll work that out with the road commission and the fire department, but we will still have a connection there, but it may be secured for a while, so.
Doug, can you speak to, there was a question about public infrastructure. This is going to be serviced by public water and sewer, right?
So as I stated before, East Bay had in the 80s and 90s, in fact, overbuilt their water system by exponential degrees. And if you notice, they've got a brand new water tower, which was built to handle the pressures of going up beyond 4 Mile up the hills. East Bay is probably the most prepared for development township that there is in the area. They've been proactive in the last 10 or 15 years getting ready for this. And the roads, though, are out of their hands. We all know that 3 Mile's been looked at for at least as long as I've lived here, 30, 40 years now. And Hammond Road, though, is set for some improvements beyond 3 Mile. I think in the next year is when that's going to take place. So I will say since the millage was done, the primary road system in this county is probably one of the best in the state right now. But you are seeing this Traverse City, Grand Traverse area as a huge target market through the political unrest and the COVID issues over the last year and a half. I will tell you, both my sons are professionals in the Detroit area. Neither one of them have been back to work in their nice, big, cushy offices in Ann Arbor and Detroit. In fact, the two top 5 companies that they work for in the nation have sold those buildings. These people are not going back to work. So my son was tired of living in Detroit, not going to the office and having those benefits, so he just bought a house in Traverse City, Michigan. And he's been working remotely and doesn't know that he'll ever go back. So times are changing. What people want in the inside these apartments is changing. And what a better place to live than here. So we're seeing the impact of being a great place, so.
Thank you. Any other questions of the commissioners?
Wasn't there a question about materials, colors?
Yes,
I
there.
know it's in the packet, but maybe he could
Yep,
just address
there was-
it.
I mean, I'll commit to
Sorry.
earth tone palettes.
Sorry.
I mean, we're not going to paint them, Pepsi blue or flamingo pink, but I'll commit to an earth tone palette.
I had a question. There was something in Claire's notes about emergency service vehicle turnaround in the Headwaters Apartment that crosses the area now, and
It's actually.
is it going to be available if there is a necessity there?
So, Doug, the note that I had made is that the Headwaters development.
If it doesn't go through, yeah.
The emergency turnaround is partially on the Brigantine apartment property, and
We're going to have to fix that. It's a gravel area.
Yeah.
I don't know how they ever got away with this, because I can never get away with this. If they have a gravel pad right in here.
Yeah, it's
and,
very pitted. I drove in it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the answers is to work with them to actually create a loop around there.
Okay.
Yeah, so fashion's that.
I recognize it's not necessarily your thing. I was just curious about it.
Right,
Yeah.
but, it's, to abandon the easements, it's either interconnections, and we have to work out landscaping and making the two look like they belong together, or something. But, yeah, the fix is to create a loop in there, and we'll get rid of that.
Can I ask a quick question? Oh, I'm sorry, Paul.
Go ahead.
Because I'm one of the newer commissioners. So years ago, when they approved the site plan for Crystal Ridge, they said that there was this proposed walking path to connect to a future development. Can you guys explain to me why that was necessary or what the thought process is there, just so I have a little background on that?
I'm older than you are, so I'll take it first. But, yeah, the same ordinances that are there today were there then. It talks about community and pedestrian safety, pedestrian separation, keeping, like a grid in a city, keeping those back roads where you can maneuver on and keeping less traffic off the prime roads. As much as good as intent as it goes back to several planners ago, to have that grid like a city where people don't have to get on the highways and byways to get to the store. Public pressure, though, has been just as strong to say, we're in here, we don't want that connection, we don't want the traffic, safety, all those reasons. What really complicates that ordinance is in the 2000s, the road commission said, look, we get pennies on the mile to take care of a local road. We cannot afford to take any more over, and in such, we will not take over a local road anymore, like a subdivision or something like that. And now, so now you got all these private roads that are privately funded to build, privately maintained, probably, or privately, escrowed for future capital improvements. And you can't, as a government, guarantee that, hey, this little piece that happens to be at the throat before Hammond Road, our primary road in the area, is only 21 lots, and they've been taking great care of this, and now you want to dump 200 units through it? That equity, we've never been able to work out. And it's a crying shame that we just didn't find a better way to fund road construction with the road commission on local roads. But that's what they get from the state and federal government to maintain it, and it just complicates the world.
As
So,
far as the walking path?
so that led to, okay, we don't get the walking, or the driveways, the roads, maybe at least we could have a pedestrian path. Because bicycles became more prevalent, walking's important, and so that sufficed, okay? Because if we didn't see traffic reduced, at least we wanted to build on what we see the philosophy of community is that Billy should be able to go see Susie, and play together and come home on safe walkways. Actually, I'm in a discussion in Garfield Township right now where there was supposed to be a pathway built between Stone Ridge and Cedar Creek condominiums, which is a more senior, it's actually a replica almost in scale. But what happens is you've got actually families that live in Stone Ridge that want to go see the grandparents in Cedar Creek, and they have to walk through a mud trail right now through the wetlands, and now they want their trail built, that was supposed to be there. But nobody thought they wanted it back then, but the easement still existed, And so that's how that kind of came about, and everybody likes to be isolationist, and I get that too. I live on 2 acres out in the middle of nowhere, and, so I understand that desire. It's safe.
And just to add to that, so right now, the way that our ordinance is written, there is a requirement for connection, vehicular connection, technically to Crystal Ridge. There's challenges from a, topography standpoint to make that vehicular connection, and we wouldn't necessarily be able to require Crystal Ridge to connect. The township would basically require a connection to the boundary, and so that would not even establish a connection, and so that's kind of part of the reason we're looking at pedestrian. We are, the new roundabout has pedestrian crossings there. We've got a Safe Routes to School grant application in to have a pedestrian connection from 3 Mile all the way to 4 Mile, so that would be a bike path all the way along that.
Along Hammond.
Along Hammond, yep.
Paul?
Yeah, could you discuss a little bit, looks like Building F is the lower building, I guess, yeah. Yeah, that's real close, what I'm seeing here, on or close to the contaminated area.
Nope.
When I'm looking at
This one would be the closest.
isn't that F?
It is.
Either way, forget about nomenclature. What about that particular building that's, from what I'm looking at, looks like it's right on, next to the tip of the contaminated area? Can you discuss that a bit, please?
There is a boundary around the contaminated area. Understand, it's not like the levels in ours.
I'm not the only one. There was a letter from Sousa?
Yeah.
Yeah. referencing that same point, that it looked like that building was,
Oh, we moved it out of there pursuant to her comment.
so that building now, when I'm looking at that drawing for the rest of them, are those buildings further to the north?
You'll notice all these have pretty good symmetry with where the parking and parking aisles are, but that building is offset about 20 feet. So we had to take this, because we didn't have that legal description of where the arsenic was, and then soil erosion had it, sent the whole thing over to us, and we put the boundary in there, and then moved this building 20 feet north.
Okay,
This one.
okay, so this.
Yeah, this is accurate.
This is an older rendition that I'm looking at.
No, this is.
These ones, it shows it offset like that does.
Yeah.
The original,
See right there?
Yeah, but it's offset.
Paul, the original site plan that Faith Souza reviewed, the building was on.
Right.
Okay.
Slightly on
Right.
the contamination site.
Yeah. All right, so you're 20 foot
Yeah, just
further
off.
off. Okay. Then, just for general discussion, who's the target audience? Who do you hope to market to?
Well, everyone would hope to get, I will tell you, everyone would hope to get the 65-year-old active woman, single, and she pays the full rent and all the same things that a family of three do. And she takes a three-bedroom unit. I mean, that is the greatest thing in the world. It's probably going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, the same thing we said on the Lautner farm. You're going to get about 60% of the people are going to be 60 and older. Then it's going to be a mix of college-bound kids, fitting into a room, probably from the Maritime or the Coast Guard, because that's a real need here. And then in between there, you're going to get your young professional families, so.
Is there any discussion as to the average length of lease?
Well, they're
Just a
year
year?
leases, they're year leases, so.
Okay.
It is the hopes by the investments in the having actually hard surface paths instead of the footpaths and stuff like that, very informal stuff, that people live here. I mean, that's where this world's going right now, so. Because they don't know if they're going to have to go back to wherever they came from and work remotely or whatever,
Okay. And then one last question, just for clarity. The buildings are at 35 feet, well, actually 34.7? With that?
To the
And that's-
midpoint, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going by your statement
right.
and the measurements I've seen on here. And I just want to make sure, 34.7, but that is exactly the maximum height. There's not going to be any aerials or anything that is going higher than, let's say, air conditioning units or anything.
Okay. There's gable roofs, and understand that height in East Bay is measured from the midpoint of the eave to the peak. Okay, so that's where the 34.7 is measured. 35 is the max. The only thing I can't promise you is that there's venting pipes that may come up through the roof that, but we don't have any air conditioners going on the roof, no cupolas, nothing like that,
Yeah, I'm just
Yep.
clarifying
Yep.
for view-wise.
Yep, and actually, you say that the Headwaters buildings were 30 feet 4 inches, I think, to the peak, so, and I will say even our grading plan is lower, because we had a broader surface, so we actually came down in grade, so there will not, if you were to have the two side by side, the two developments, you probably won't tell the difference on height and scale of the buildings.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Last thing I just want to say, just ballpark, when you say market rate, size of these units are one bedroom, I'm guessing 700 square foot?
8, almost, yeah.
8 for a one bedroom? Okay, so 3 bedrooms going to be like 1,500 square foot, 1,300 square foot?
Yeah. Probably in that 12 to 13.
So in other surrounding areas, market rate means you're going to be a one-bedroom is probably going to be around 1,200 a month.
Oh, yeah.
Bare minimum. So just know that, you know, and it's going to go up from there pretty significantly, pretty sharp. The market rate, these are going to be units that are, I'm just envisioning the population that we're generally targeting throughout the region, the working professionals and the younger, I would say mobile entrepreneurs. The in-migration to this region is insane. A week ago, I had 2 meetings in town and I met 6 people from California who had moved here in the last 30 days. And, I mean, it's happening. So I would say that within our community and within the planning documentation we've got and the zoning that's underlying, I mean, this is kind of what the community's been planning for a long time. It is adjacent to an existing different style of development, but nonetheless, within the township's code, you know, this is an area where it's kind of been talked about. It's been approved many times over in different forms over the course of the last few years too, so take that into consideration. And this is just a site plan review this evening. There are some outlying conditions that staff's outlined and some things that they're still working on, admittedly through local agencies in terms of the road commission and that sort. So I just kind of wanted to have a little more discussion here internally with the commission. If there's any other questions of staff or the applicant or anything we need to touch on, let's kind of hash them out. So maybe we'll just go around. Renee, anything that comes to mind?
I think my questions have been answered.
Okay, thank you.
My only question is primarily about traffic. I don't think we can answer it here. I do see, I drive that road every day. I do see the backups at the, you know, both rush hours going the other way. I don't know how to answer that, and I think that's something for the road commission and other people to hash out, but I think it is an issue that we're going to have to address more and more as more development happens. I don't know if it's widening Hammond, extra turn lanes, whatever it might be, but.
Right. Judy?
Yes. Doug, I think we were going to, or I should address it to Claire. Let me address it to Claire then too. We talked about, first of all, the landscape plan. I brought up a couple of things, and you mentioned blue spruce. That's not on your list. So maybe you meant the Black Hill spruce.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, but, because that's not a native plant either. So if you could work together, maybe with Petra and that, to make sure that we're not just creating things that would be invasive and not, you know, as much native as possible. So, and I know that when developments happened before, we did landscaping based on 2007, and we know a lot more what we're trying to do. So would you be willing to work with my comments from before? They gave us, to the public, they gave us a list of the plantings and trees. It's really trees, right? There must be a typo there. And there's a few questions about that. Secondly, did we have an irrigation plan? Did I miss that? Okay, we do. Okay, never mind. And having served with Ted Henschel for over a decade, he's always talking about paving Vanderlip, and that's not our deal, but boy, that's something that's gotta happen if this continues, and I understand that. As Wade Trim indicated, and I don't feel comfortable because I didn't get really a chance to really thoroughly read their thing, but they had a few questions about, and I'm not sure, like, what is the contamination? Faith, I think, did supply us with that, so, but I really would like to look through their document a little bit more closely, so I would feel comfortable with that. I don't see any mechanical on the, like where ACs are gonna be and that type of thing, and if that's gonna be screened on the elevations.
Okay.
So I really think I would like to see that, because, you know, where those things are placed, are kind of important, if they're by bedrooms or by patios or et cetera. I didn't see that, maybe I missed it. And again, were you going to put in all the utilities for, is this going to be phased in, or how is this going to be done? Is this going to be done in phases?
I think it's too early to say.
Is it? Okay. Because I know that there was some concern with all the utilities going in all at once, and it's being phased in some other developments because a lot of earth movement. So I just want to.
The earth movement would most likely, because I need dirt from this place over to this place, so the dirt movement is probably going to be done all at once, okay, to balance the earth. And frankly, that's what anybody involved in the area or should want. Get it done and get out of there.
Right, we just want to make sure, again, that our watersheds, our
Oh, yeah.
clay soils and everything are protected. I know that's an Eagle issue, but I think that's imperative. I also would like to see a traffic study, 2005, if, I really don't feel comfortable making a decision without that traffic study and understanding a little bit more about that. Because we've seen that we've added a precinct, we've added a seat, I guess. We've divided East Bay Township into two, having two representatives now.
We've always, I mean, we have had,
Okay,
we have
okay. But we've
two.
added a precinct because we've added development since 2005. I mean, that's like almost 17 years ago. So I really, and a roundabout, and we have cut down, for people who have been here, they did do work a long time ago on Hammond Hill and cut it down. So there was some improvement to Hammond, but not nearly what we need. So those are things that are really, that I would like to have in my pocket before voting and putting this forward.
I will say, Judy, on the traffic study, I really need a conditional approval before I'm going to hire, because there's nobody in town to do those anymore since the recession. I have to go to at least Grand Rapids, if not Detroit, and spend probably, I'm going to see, in excess of $15,000 for something that used to be $7,500. So I really need something to say, you're in, if the road commission says you're in. So I'm just saying, I'm just being honest.
Right.
It's not like it used to be.
And I am too, about
Yep.
the Wade trim.
I know.
haven't had a
Yep.
chance to
Yep.
review some things. So I didn't say anything, I said something about postponing as opposed
Right.
to yes or no. And then I would like to see, what permits have you applied for?
We have not applied for any permits. We have letters of practical approval from
Okay,
the fire department,
Yep.
engineers, soil erosion, engineers for stormwater.
okay,
I think that's all there is.
Okay.
So
all right. All right,
I'm as far as I can go on those.
right, okay, just a few things on that. Thank you.
Okay, I've got just a few comments from John Syke I just wanted to throw out there for everyone in the general public. The actual chair. Again, I'm the temp. This is not a full-time role. He says, overall, the plan appears to be a good design and provides attractive amenities for future residents. Certainly, the previous site plan approval set a precedence for understanding how this neighborhood development will connect together, meaning this and the adjacents. There are some items I'd like to see addressed to provide a safe and more integrated development. My comments are as follows. Provide a motorized connection to Headwaters Apartments as was previously envisioned by approved site plans. This connection would eliminate the need for a new driveway off of 4 Mile. This connection will not be made at this time. If this connection will not be made at this time, then Brigantine should show a stub on its site plan, avoid any landscapings in this area, and provide an easement up to the property line and have a condition of approval requiring a future connection. The condition of approval may state something like, to the extent the adjoining landowner to the south cooperates as necessary, allow for a cross-access between this site and adjacent site, including making a portion of the subject site available for a location of a shared drive and provide for the associated costs of the construction and maintenance thereof. Provided non-motorized connection to Crystal Ridge, as was previously envisioned by approved site plans. A stub pathway is already in place at Crystal Ridge. Provide additional landscape plantings along Vanderlip Road to screen the west side of the second proposed garage north of Hammond Road. In anticipation of future development to the north and providing a future motorized connection, show an extension of Road B near Building C on the site plan to the north property line. Avoid any landscape plantings in this area and provide an easement up to the property line and have a condition of approval for future connection similar to the connections to headwaters. There, I just wanted to get that out there. Paul, anything else?
No, I'm
additional?
fine, thank you.
Okay. Tracy?
A couple of questions. I'm not sure who to. Judy mentioned, or actually Doug mentioned, that the earth movement would probably all be done at the same time, although the building may not all be done at the same time, because we are learning from our ignorance from the past. I would just ask if we can make a condition that any earth that is not built on, not finished, that there be grass or ground cover or something, so that we don't have a dust pile, or you leave the big mound of dirt like got left there that we saw tonight. That, and, you know, what was on the old putt-putt golf down by Hampton Inn, you know, we don't want those things again. So we're trying to learn. So some kind of ground cover so that it looks appealing, not just a dust bowl. We're not in charge of traffic studies, are we? I mean, can we?
The Planning Commission can request a traffic study, and it's generally triggered based on a threshold of the number of additional units. And so
Okay.
this is fewer units than what
And
is
triggers that.
generally required, than the guidance in our zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission can still regardless request a
Okay.
traffic study, but this is fewer than what our ordinance would generally
Okay.
recommend for a traffic.
And has anybody reached out to the road commission? Because, like we said, there was probably one done for the roundabout. I mean, even though it was probably done by them, I would assume, not a third party.
No, it was, they actually hired OHM.
Oh, okay.
To come up and come with that was the mix of fixes presentations
Right,
that they
okay.
had. We're going to do this here and do this here.
There's been so many.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, so yeah, and it's not that old. Actually, to the east of this site, not much has gone on.
Right.
But I think they wanted, now that the thing's in place, they want
Right.
to see what the timing is and where the headaches of trying to turn, you know, into the vicinity of that are. So,
Okay.
So that was their comments. They wanted to see a traffic.
Right, and that's why I thought I read it, but I couldn't find it real fast.
it was really, unlike some of the other traffic studies that we've done on bigger developments for East Bay Township, where it goes like for a mile radius, this was really focused on
The
the
intersection.
turning movements that we were proposing, or for the intersections that we were proposing in relationship to the distance of the roundabout arms, so.
And didn't I see, and again, you know, I read it all, but trying to find it when I'm sitting here. Didn't they request a flare for the entrance for Vanderlip?
They wanted it in order, and it's kind of funny because it's not there now, but they wanted, if someone was trying to turn left and they were
Oh,
delayed.
yeah, they wanted a left
Right, they
turn.
want to make sure that the right could get out so they don't get
Yeah.
impatient. So it's an improvement to the commercial driveway approach. It's not,
Okay.
that one doesn't scare me, yeah.
Okay. Then, just, I know we've talked a lot about the elevations, but I think I've been trying to read the really fine print. And Mindy is much better at this, and I apologize, I am her replacement, but I am not Mindy. My understanding is from the, I have to get my directions, from the south to the north, the elevation goes down like almost 30 feet, right?
Oh, from property line to property line?
Right, like when you're looking down through the,
Through that whole valley?
yeah.
Oh, it's more like 60 feet.
Is
Yeah,
it 60?
yeah.
See,
Yeah.
they're tiny numbers. There was one thing that was blown up, and I'm like, oh, but it's not blown up far enough down. So, I mean, because I wish I went in the daylight onto the property today, but, and because I was just appointed last night, I didn't do this over the weekend. But I did drive from the east to the west this afternoon, and, I know that this planning commission years ago, when Waterview was put in, that was a big deal with the view shed and stuff. And I looked, I always look over that view shed because it's beautiful. But I purposely looked over and tried to see the headwaters buildings and stuff, because I believe these buildings are going to be lower in elevation
They'll be,
or similar.
so, I did Waterview Ridge.
Yeah,
I did that whole example. That was a PUD.
right.
So they could, the township.
Yeah,
could
the
ask-
township did a lot of negotiating
Right.
there,
Bill
yeah.
was asking for a big senior center and stuff.
Right.
So I brought this great big old monitor in and all the big CPU, and we hooked it up and played out the thing. And the condos laid out very nicely. The
Right.
senior center never happened,
Right.
And it was, because we put a lot of work into that.
Yeah,
And then the church went up without any contest,
Mm-hmm.
and Crystal Ridge, I think I asked it on that, where we're going to have to protect the view shed on that. No, okay, then, because beyond that was where Bruce Ortenberger, the planner at that time, defined that was the view shed. So, let's go back to Headwaters as you see it today. The three buildings are going up the hill.
Right.
And actually, there's a ridge beyond that where the turnaround is kind of scarred into it. So those buildings will be built we're going to cap off that ridge about 5-6 feet,
okay.
and then the buildings will sit on that, so.
So they're going to be taller than what? Because I remember, because I was here when we did Headwaters, and we made, I don't know if it was you, we made somebody go out there and put
Oh,
a
they put balloons, yeah.
pole up as high as the building was going to be, and we made them move the buildings away from the road a little more, because it was going to be this big wall on 4 Mile. So how close, we're further away from 4 Mile than the Headwaters. And it's angled, so there's not going to be,
Right.
the face of the
You won't see the
apartments.
garages, the face,
Right.
like you would Headwaters and those kind of things.
Right. Now, personally, I think Headwaters looks great, so.
Headwaters was focused, the buildings actually were turned to get
Right.
as much bay view as they can.
Yeah.
We didn't try to force
This
that.
isn't doing that, yeah.
Right.
Well, you're going for a different demographic.
I think they did the poll thing, and then someone took pictures of the view,
Yep.
and then they.
Oh, yeah, they had-
rendered
Yep.
in, and I think that really helped the public. They rendered in
Well, it helped the planning commission.
what the building would look like
Yeah.
for the people in their view shed. They don't have that picture, and I don't know how expensive that is
Yeah, but
to
if,
do, so that.
and I'm
Well,
not
there's two
concerned so
things.
much.
Yes.
And I want to be real careful on this because I deal a lot in this town with view sheds. Public view sheds can be protected
Right.
if they are recorded. Peninsula Township
Right,
has a plan.
and we don't.
Yeah. So private view sheds in court, though, have been said you cannot protect those.
Right.
Okay? So,
Yeah, and I'm not as concerned as
Right.
I was when Headwaters was coming in, because the buildings are angled
Right.
and going in, so I'm good with that. I would agree with John, I would like to see the connection up to the boundary to go towards Headwaters, and so that, the same thing that we're doing down at the Bay, down at the hotel, so that when we can, that's going to be a connection, because I think that that's important. And I know John said that, it could probably eliminate the 4-mile entrance. That's a road commission thing, I don't know.
Yeah, your ordinance,
know
it's funny,
that-
your ordinance and the road commission ordinance both speaks that if you do this and do that, you can have it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah,
And then nobody says we want it. Well, why is it in there? Because it's almost if you meet this 400 feet in East Bay, you can have another, every 400 feet, you can have an entrance. In fact, Headwaters had another one planned on it still.
Right.
That, I don't know whatever happened to, but, yeah, those were the days to
Yeah.
just hand out driveway permits, I guess.
Right.
So, but
and then I do think, I totally understand Crystal Ridge's opposition to the pedestrian path, but I'm not sure that I was here when Crystal Ridge was put in, but I know that there was discussion about, it was another development, Bergsma was doing one. Yeah, I think so. And the topography is why we didn't do the vehicle connection, but we did want the pedestrian connection, and I think that especially with our Safe Routes to School initiative that we're doing and the pedestrian at the roundabout, that's equally important. So it's there, it needs to be connected, in my opinion. And I do.
Can we concentrate on that? Because, so if we're going to do this, what we've talked about, even in the Commons where I work, is, because you got the schools, you got Munson, you got a lot of tourists, and you got bikes, dog walkers, older people, younger people, schools, was to, if we're going to enjoin another property, was to create a place that the walk just didn't change from old concrete to new concrete, that there was a circle in the walk or something, and an arbor or even a faux gate that says, think about where you are right now, because it's somebody else's world, and I think maybe I try to do a detail or something like that that says, thou shalt, and that's where you put your doggy bags and, we got one with the TART trails now. When the things change like that, we're doing the air tire fix stations and stuff like that. Just someplace to say you're in a different world now and you need to respect that. So,
So is
you
that
can't deny that it
something?
wasn't there. It's
Yeah.
there. It's whether it's
Right.
needed and it's practical.
Claire, is that something that we can put as a condition to have some kind of, I don't want to put a gate that you have to stop and open it, because it's hard enough for me to get on my bike. I don't want to have to stop and get off and open a gate and get back on it. But some way to, identify the boundary? I don't know, I'm asking Claire, is that something that we
I
can
think
do?
And I think that they're going to be coming back with updated plans next month, so I've got a list of
Okay, I just
items to
am
work with
asking
them,
if
so, yeah, I think
that's
that-
even possible.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Because I do think that the pedestrian is valid. Like I said, with the Safe Routes to School and the bike path coming there, it just makes sense to me. There was one other thing. Oh, I think you mentioned, like, gating the Vanderlip.
That may be a potential if,
I am not a fan of
so
gates.
here's the deal, though. Sitting out there tonight, looking left,
It's bad.
that sight distance is not good. And you have to really think whether you want to promote more traffic. First of all, if you're on Hammond headed east, do you want to promote traffic that is now not stopping, coming over a hill turning in there. I got to talk to my developers. They adamantly want it, you know? But sincerely, I was like, and if we do it, we got to widen Hammond, because there's got to be a passing flare, which tonight I'm there at 5:30, and I'm going, please don't, you know, I'm going to put my blinker on, I'm going to sit there, and you're going to get really mad when I try to turn left with all this other traffic. It's not good.
Well, and I understand that, and the people that live in this development are going to learn which way to go at what time, because where I live, if I live on Carlisle, and so I don't ever go out to Hammond. I come out to Smith, because
right.
it's easier to turn, and I have more sight distance.
Right.
I could go either way. My husband goes to Hammond, I don't. But, so, I mean, people are going to learn that. We have gates in other places in the township, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
And then this plan says that, I think it indicates that you're going to pave Vanderlip from the entrance to Hammond,
We have
correct?
to rebuild. Right now, what they're saying, and this is typical of final permitting, if the traffic warrants it, if, 'cause that's why one of the reasons they want the traffic study.
Right.
How many left turn lanes are you going to do, and how close are you to the roundabout, and these kind of things. So, but it is already a county road, so they got kind of an issue there with their own little animal. But, if we do that, it's a passing flare, it's A-cell lane going west, and then widening the curb cut to 3 lanes, right, left, and right in, and then in, and we'll be paving it from there about 425 feet to the south, to the north.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
That entrance, it wasn't where we were sitting today.
No.
It's farther
It's
back.
farther back.
Beyond that hill that was behind
Right.
us, okay.
And to segue on to Tracy's, this is summer. When it gets icy on Hammond Hill and you're going down or going up, it's pretty hard to stop for somebody turning there. And so you're absolutely right to talk with them. And then secondly, where does the safe route to school and path end on Hammond? Where did we decide that is going to end?
Alta Vista, right?
Was it was way after Chartwell?
The pathway along
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it goes at least to Chartwell.
Yeah, but this is further, so I guess, I really want
It's
to
not on the south side, it's only on the
Yeah,
north
I
side.
know, so making a connector, yikes. I mean, I just want to bring that to our attention.
But I will tell you, they ride bikes on that road right now.
Oh, I know.
So,
I know.
The other thing I'll just mention, and I know the planning commission's aware of it, but any development over 30 units does need to have 2 all-season access.
Yeah.
So if we're not accessing on Vanderlip, if there's a gate there, then there would need to be 2.
right, then the Headwaters thing
Yeah.
would be even more.
But that's really not.
It's not the answer.
Actually, I think I've read through your ordinance a lot. I think it conflicts itself. At one point, it says 400 feet apart will be fine. Well, then it says it got to comply to the fire department. That doesn't comply to the fire department for 2 accesses. They have to be half the diagonal distance of the property apart. So
Yeah.
it also, you could
I
use.
think both those entrances would comply with fire department distance.
Not to satisfy the multifamily requirements for access, yeah. I just got done a big project on Peninsula where I got a training on that, so, yeah.
But that's something we'll discuss. I mean, it'll come back next week,
You
next.
get some work when you're on
month.
leave to
But-
go through that private road ordinance.
Anyway, so, I mean, I know that was a long list, and I'm sure there's more I'll think of, but,
So the gist of that, though, yes, you had a lot of concerns. I'm looking for to-dos. You know, what,
the landscaping needs to be beefed up, that's
Like-
been
like
mentioned.
where?
On the, John Sykes had it in his memo on the, what'd he say, the west on Vanderlip. Screening, provide additional landscape planting along Vanderlip to screen west side, second proposed garage north of Hammond. So not only screen for the interior, but the exterior. Because our neighbors across the road there, too.
And then also work with Claire on the list.
Yeah, the landscape plantings.
Yep. So that would be a to-do list. I think the
The traffic
mechanical,
thing.
where the mechanical is located in screening. Did I miss that on the drawing? I looked at the elevations.
Usually in the landscape plan,
Okay, maybe I don't know why I was looking at the elevations, but.
And then I think Claire had some things in her review.
I will tell you that you won't see the TIS study for 6 months to a year.
Right.
It's going to take that long to get. but, yeah.
And, you know, I think staff can help us figure out how to deal with that.
Well, to me, it's just, and I'm just going to throw it out there, it's up to the road commission. So that you granted jurisdiction to them for
Right.
that issue. So. Things are going to get real complicated these days with all these roundabouts and trying to guess what is the appropriate distance for that.
Okay.
I think,
Thanks.
I think we've crushed, no, that was good, because I don't have to say anything else. I think you have all said all the things I was at top of mind. And again, I think regardless of which way we go, if there's a motion to approve today, we need to be a little bit clearer on exactly what those deliverables are for the applicant. If it's going to be a motion to deny our table, we need to be very clear on, again, what rationale there is, why, and what's going to go along with that. So with that, definitely entertain a motion to move forward with site plan review 10-21.
I would like to go ahead and, I think is it postpone? As opposed to table, I believe it is. I would like to postpone it to the December 7 meeting and have the things that were discussed at the to-do list that Doug asked, work to resolve those things, and December 7, come back and go from there. Does that make sense?
It does.
Well, how about, I would like to postpone until December 7 meeting with the to-do list that Claire and staff will review with Mansfield, and come back to the planning conditions with the answers and the resolution to those issues.
And a revised plan.
Yeah, revised plan.
And hopefully by then, road commission will have more to say? Because aren't we waiting on them?
No, I don't think that they've already done their preliminary review.
Okay.
And gotten that to us, so I think that their next step would probably be waiting for that traffic impact and before issuing the driveway permits and stuff like that.
So if it's 6 months down, I'm sorry, I'm out
You're
of
okay.
turn.
You're okay.
It actually coordinates, I mean, those dates, first of all.
We're not building until next
Yeah.
March regardless.
I mean, a sewer permit takes 180 days to get, so.
Okay.
So I'm not afraid of any of those comments that the project won't go through. First of all, they've issued permits on 4 Mile Road. Now, they'll have to retract those. And they don't like to do that because really bad politics. They just want to make sure that they're verified with that's going on. Vanderlip is going to look at probably a mix of fixes, I'm going to say, because it's a county road. They're not going to abandon that county road, but they're going to have to improve it. So it's just going to take time. Those resources just aren't in Traverse City anymore.
Right.
So,
Okay, so I will support Judy's motion. Sorry, I should have done that before I started discussion. I will support Judy's motion as long as, Claire, are you guys okay with that punch list that we kind of gave you?
Yeah,
Enough in-
I would say, just to add to it, I would like to look into that Headwaters and have that loop on there.
Yep.
And just kind of finalize some of the other questions.
Yeah, I think that's important, but I knew you had that on your list, so.
Is that an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I accept the amendment to my motion.
Okay. And as temporary chair, moving a postponement to a future date, I'm okay with it for the moment. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to just kind of try to repeat for the record the motion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So we're going to move to postpone movement or the approval or consideration until December 7th with a checklist of placement of additional plantings throughout the site, specifically targeting the western edge of the property on the southwest corners storage units, working with staff on additional plantings, screening the existing residential units along Building E. I believe we talked about that extensively. Delineation of entrance gate or some type of physical break between the two developments along the walking paths. Some type of clarification with earthwork and how that will be addressed, if not fully completed, all in one fell plan. And motorized connection, investigation, and clarity between this development and the Headwaters as well.
Along with Claire's 5.
Along with Claire's proposed recommendations 1 through 5 as stated. Did I get the motion right? Ish.
really good.
Yeah, you did very good.
I think so.
Okay, let's have a roll call, please. Judy?
Oh, yes. Me again. Okay. I will do Edley.
Yes.
Yes. Ferguson.
Yes.
Nemetz, yes. Leonard.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. We'll see you again in a month. Moving on. We're almost there, people. Public comment. This is the second opportunity for public comment. So jump on up if you've got anything additional to say, anything that was on the meeting or anything new. Sure. But please, again, yeah.
My name is Kathy Cole. I live at 1827 Casper. I am confused as to what is gained from connecting to our walking path. I don't know what that gains anybody.
Sure.
I don't understand.
No, fair question. And I mean, this is just kind of more of a philosophical thing. I wish the previous chair was here to give you a lot more history. But throughout my time being in East Bay Township, which has been, half a dozen years now, if you get out and you see other communities, the Holiday Hills area is an example. There are, I don't know how many iterations of that development that grew over the years and all became connected via public and or private walking paths. Some that are legal and some that are just kind of developed over time. And I know that's taking place throughout the region in general. We're trying to, as a region, the Grand Traverse area, do a lot better job, and that's evident through the TART system and its connectivity. It's all based upon just trying to provide other modes of transportation throughout the area. And yes, it is kind of a communal thing. It's one that's perceived or real, it's something where I think as a township, if you look in some of our master plan documents, there is a goals and objectives section tied to transportation, and interconnectivity between adjacent neighborhoods is one of those things that we talk about every single time. Every deal that we've done over here off of the golf course that's being developed, we've asked that those connections be made, even though one's an existing single-family home subdivision and the other is going to be a proposed multifamily unit system as well. So different, actually kind of a similar scenario, maybe different age gaps, but not really. If you go over there and drive around, they're kind of a similar look and feel, and we've required those connections, and in the future, they'll be made. And the idea is honestly to try to plan for it rather than to have the goat paths that happen over time and become more of a barrier because it wasn't thought through ahead of time.
So if they connect our path, because our walking path, it's a very short distance. If anybody wants to drive through our Sylvan Look, our walking path does not go completely through our subdivision. It's just a very short distance. Most of the walking that we do, I mean, it's like our walking path just connects our roads. So our roads come around like this, and then there's our walking path that just kind of connects it. So now are people going to be walking the whole circle by going on our roads? And then they have the ability to use our common area too? Because our little walking path goes right through the common area.
Sure.
That, I mean, we don't have yards, so our common area is our space that we use. So I guess now they can use our common area too?
I can't speak to the legalities of those things. I really can't. I'm just kind of coming at it from more of a philosophical angle.
I get that, yeah. We're coming from a different angle.
Yep,
So,
I understand.
yeah. I just can't wrap my head around why. Because like I said, it's a short, I mean, they don't gain anything from being able to go on our walking path.
Sure.
I mean, come and look at it, it's not a very big walking path.
It's really short.
Got it.
Tonight.
Yeah. I appreciate it. That's all I've got for you right now, but
Chris, I'm Ed Polk, I'm 1827 Caspian Lane. Did you have any thoughts about the trash compactor, trying to move that? Did you never address that?
Actually, the gentleman who stated about it to me answered the question the best. He says that that trash compactor is like 100 yards away to the nearest building. I'll go back to the amount of density that is envisioned in the master plan. To have something, and so this is a trash compactor, and I will say, the way trash is done, nobody just comes and dumps anymore. The maintenance people go to the doorstep and pick up your garbage bags every day except Saturday. Why do they do that? To make sure you empty your garbage. And so you don't have apartments that have bugs and stuff. So the maintenance guys come and pick it up during the day, they put it in the compactor, and they run compactor once a day.
So it's still have to find it compactor.
Right, but literally, it's 100 yards away. I mean, I can't envision a community that's zone moderate density where something like that is a football field away, and that's not appropriate. It's going to be somewhere next into this development. It's buffered by landscaping, it's buffered by buildings and elevation, so.
And then, and this may be a really stupid question, but.
Up to the mic, please.
Yes.
We were the second house in Crystal Ridge. And I'm remembering a conversation, I hope, when they were talking about the contamination. And I thought somebody told us at one point in time that when they dug that all out and that big mound of dirt was over there, that the reason that they quit the digging was because they discovered the contamination, and they had to be really careful about moving the earth, moving all that dirt around. So what will happen now with the building? Will they, I mean, do they just pack it down, or how does that happen that it's not harmful anymore? Do you
We can
know?
answer that.
I don't
Or-
have, yeah, I don't have the answer for that, but that'd be good food for thought, and I'm glad the development team stuck around to hear that, so that maybe we can get a little more clarity on some of the best practices for addressing that.
Yeah, I was even a little bit worried myself, knowing that that was over there. And after somebody had said, well, you don't want to disturb the earth too much, and I'm like, well, has it already been disturbed? I mean, could it get into our water? Or,
Sure, sure.
So that was just something I always think about. I didn't know. they
Sure
would
thing.
probably do that.
Usually this comes from the mixing areas where they mix chemicals.
Right.
That was the hot spot. It spilled out, farmers didn't worry about it. They boiled down, all these great things that we did. Most of the time, what they do with that is just cover it either with asphalt, utility buildings, or a certain amount of topsoil.
That's enough to make it.
Right. It's arsenic. It actually stays, but it's lead arsenic. It's not horror story. Literally, almost the entire county, region has arsenic on it.
Right, natural.
You know, so, it's the way it's handled, and people live with it on our best communities and our second. It's just these hot spots. If there's any extra, if it gets to the next height of level, they truck it in a line thing at the landfill. So, yeah. But.
Any other public comment?
it's, um,
Logistic question. Judy Boyer, 2128 Crystal Ridge Road. Again, on this 100 pages of satisfied, not satisfied comments, there's one saying there's a single-family home on the site. There's a possibility in the future this parcel could be redeveloped up to 42 units. Is that 42 units with Mansfield, or what is that?
That's the part.
I'll turn to staff for that if that's possible.
There's, that's a parcel that's just north of the proposed Brigantine Apartments. Yeah, so.
Page 5 of 9.
Yeah, so that, the recommendation is, currently, there's just a large home with a pool there. In the future, that could potentially develop up to 42 units, and so recommendation was to have an easement in place for a future connection upon, if there was a development in the future there.
Okay, so not necessarily part of the Mansfield project, just
Right, separate.
possibility. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A quick question, because you said you might be able to answer this, but probably it'll go to the next meeting. Liability if somebody drowns in our pond from the next edition. We walk carefully so we don't fall in. There's no fence, there's no protection at all on our pond. So would somebody be able to talk to this? Do we talk to our insurance and have our rates go up or get canceled or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I would suggest maybe if you guys have a legal counsel for the association, it'd be a good question for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's me again, Karen Stevens, 2111 Crystal Ridge. He kind of touched on one of the things that did concern me, and that is the liability as well as maintenance. We pay dues to maintain that short little walking path. Like Kathy said, it's not long. It literally just connects where their unit is to where Brian's unit is. Along the pond, we're right on the retention pond, so we actually are facing the berm that's behind us directly. So that is a huge concern for me, not only as a homeowner, but as being on the board. That is, liability and maintenance is a huge thing. We know what our rules are and who should not be doing certain things there. Somebody coming in from someplace else has no idea, let alone, I'm sorry, I pick up after my dogs. I'm not picking up after everybody else's dog, too. So those are some of the things. The other thing I was concerned about is, I know the traffic study you guys kept mentioning, 2005. Do you guys realize how much has happened since 2005? Alta Vista is just getting started. Elmbrook is just getting started. And none of those were even a twinkle in anybody's eye probably in 2005. So I'm not even sure if they have any indication exactly what the traffic level is going to be once those are actually established. So that, to me, is 2005, it's just too old. It's just
Right.
way too old.
Right.
Probably the last thing on my list is I'm very happy to hear that they are obviously gearing it more towards working professionals, things like that, not doing vouchers and things of that nature, subsidized living. But if it was to sell or go bankrupt, do we have any say of who buys it and how they run it?
No,
Okay, so that's another thing to think of, in my opinion.
not unless they come back to us for a change of use or, something completely different.
Right, so right now it looks great, but as we all know, developments start and developments don't finish, and they change hands. And then we're looking at a totally different case scenario that's already been approved, and we're stuck where we're at.
Well, so just for a little bit of clarity and help me out if need be, but site plans are only good for so long unless they're enacted
Right.
and moved forward with,
You know how
so,
long they're good for? Just
I
curiosity.
think it's 2 years.
2 years? Okay.
Yep, so, as I said, this is not the first approval for this site. There's been a few prior, so you're not wrong.
So that's those, and then the last but not least, and I know he touched on the lighting, thank you for doing that. But the one thing that he didn't really address was surveillance. Are they going to have any outdoor cameras? Because that's been a big thing at Ridge 45. The people that did Ridge 45, not only they don't want the expense of putting up the lighting, they also didn't want the expense of putting up cameras. So now, people that live there are doing their own, and now they've got people complaining that other people are spying on them because now they have their own surveillance cameras. So I would like to know, are they going to install their own cameras on the buildings to kind of monitor things? I'm not expecting to have them on every corner, but to me, that helps deter crime, as well as light. So that's, I think, pretty much all the rest of the stuff I had. I would really like for the board to consider and think about moving forward.
Got it. Thank you. Mhm. Okay, that's all the public comment. Any updates from the planning commissioners? Anything new? Any trainings? You don't just want to BS anymore up here? Okay. And, okay, so that puts us to, our next meeting date is December 7th. And at this time, I will say, meeting adjourned at 9:05. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dan.
Way to go.
Yay.
Thank you for showing up.
You didn't want to do it?
I will be able to tell you that by December 1st, because I have to report for it, and I don't know yet.